I've come here to a new rewilding project near to Loch Ness to see what challenges the new owners are facing in their attempts to regenerate this small patch of the Highlands. The site is called Birchfields, which is very apt as there are plenty of birch trees here looking glorious today in their autumn raiment. The biggest challenge to regenerating this site, the most immediate challenge, is evident here. This tree was planted maybe 10 years ago, and you can see that something is stopping it growing very much beyond the top of this protector tube. And that something is deer. Deer are supreme nibblers of trees, and they are thwarting the attempts here to regenerate this site. Today, the new owners of Birchfields are going to try and solve this problem, and I've come along to help. The owners of Birchfields have assembled a small team to drive the deer off the land and give the woodland a chance to regenerate. Cameron Ross is in charge of the operation.
So the job today is to try and get the deer out of, with a fenced enclosure here, which is about 25 hectares. They got in the first place when a tree fell down and flattened the fence. We've already got a sort of resource of native woodland, the remnant woodland in the valley bottom here with birch and rowan and things like that, which will regenerate on this site, but not with the presence of deer. Even 2 or 3 deer in an area this size would probably be too many, so we really want it to be a deer-free zone. It's Sika deer, which are actually a non-native, which were introduced from Japan many years ago to deer parks, but they escaped and have basically naturalised. Normally deer are controlled by culling, but in this situation for various reasons we're not doing that and we're trying to drive the deer out. So it's a wee bit of experimental.
But before we can drive the deer out, we need to find them. And for that, we have a secret weapon.
We've managed to get a thermal drone on site, which we hoped would help pinpoint the presence of the deer and allow us to sort of focus our manpower in the right way to move the deer towards a gap in the fence that we've made to help get them out.
While Cameron and Angus, the drone pilot, try and locate the deer, I meet the owners of Birchfields to find out about their plans for the site.
I'm Amelia Lease, and this is Roger Lease, and we own Birchfield, and it's a 100-acre site that we are trying to rewild and reforest for the foreseeable future.
This here looks like it's been nibbled already.
One part, and if you like the most immediate part, is to see this 100 acres rewilded and see it come back to life, see a massive increase in biodiversity, and also that as a result just see this as a much nicer environment for people to enjoy. But beyond that, we also want to have the site demonstrate to the wider world and the wider public what can be done, and to inspire others to do the same, to gather information and data as to how doing this can be a real benefit to the community and can sequester carbon and can manage water flows and all of those sorts of things.
One of the first things that we wanted to do in this part was to try to minimize the impact of deer browsing on the saplings that are growing.
I asked Cameron, as an experienced woodland manager, about the impact of deer across the Highlands.
Well, deer prevent natural regeneration of most native tree species at a density any higher than sort of 4 or 5 deer per square kilometre. And I mean, if you look at the ground in the background here, at one time most of that would have been wooded. It would have been sort of semi-natural or native broadleaf woodland up the glen with Scots pine. But just over generations of land use that focused on maybe grazing by sheep and sporting interests for high densities of red deer, over time the woodlands haven't been able to sustain themselves through regeneration. So gradually, as the older trees die off, they're gone and there's nothing gets a chance to replace them because of the pressure from deer and sheep.
Back to the deer drive. How has Angus got on with the drone?
Yeah, we've flown the top end of the block. We've determined there's no deer there. What we have seen, there's a couple of deer down here, which we've identified and hopefully pushing them down that way. And there's guys coming in from the top end and are starting to drive the deer down towards the break in the fence.
There's 9 of us, but I would like to take some up the hill now. Yeah, maybe 2 or 3. 2 or 3, right. Sika deer are quite secretive, difficult to manage. In an ideal world, we just want to encourage them to move in the general direction of where we know the gap in the fence is. That can work sometimes, but other times it doesn't. If the deer do get a bit excited, then it becomes much more difficult to predict what they're going to do. So many people went through that area where this morning they were breaking back in them all the time.
Actually, we're starting.
Well, we just don't think they were there this time. So whether they've gone out, some of them have maybe gone out of their own accord.
By the end of the day, the team have managed to drive at least some of the deer out, and Amelia is pleased with the day's efforts.
I think the day went really well. We think we had about 11 deer, and we think that there are 3 left now. So that's good, and 3 we can tolerate, at least for a while, until we figure out if that's the case. And then we can come back at some point in the winter and try it again. It was good to have the drone.
Thermal camera's been great. We've spotted deer that we wouldn't otherwise have seen. So it's, in many ways, this has been a test, but it's actually been quite a successful test.
So that was helpful. That was a good lesson to learn as well. So yeah, I think we had a good day.
Move your arm as you did, pointing out that land over there.
Where's my Oscar?